with your code. Leanna, is this one on Shavuot that you've been working on?
Yeah, well, it's called the morrow after. The Shavuot ones I did not, there were too many to choose from.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting on the Shavuot ones. But
Okay.
yeah, I have one, but I was hoping Margie would go first.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Whoever wants to go first. Don't be shy. What are you working on, Margie? And is this on the code finder? Since you're able to get that one. If you're talking, you're muted. We can't hear you. Margie, we cannot hear you. You guys can't hear it, can you?
Can't hear her.
Yeah, I don't hear it either.
No, can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
now we can.
So sorry. So sorry. Let's see. No, that's the wrong one. Wrong one. Can you see the class presentation, Holy is Jehovah, on the
You
screen?
can, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Holy is Jehovah. It was very, very small. You really can't make out that it's a picture, but it's actually a picture. Head, beard, tongue. Wait. Is this eyes? Let me see. I have to look. One of the things is eyes, which is sideways. Another is the tongue, basically. Or saying, expressing or saying something. I can't. Let me look for eyes. My eyes. My eyes is Ayin, Yud. Okay, this is his eyes. And I guess I don't, and this is something else. Okay. I said above is where the eyes would be my eyes. His raiment would be his raiment. His raiment's around here. You can see these look kind of sandals, really cool. This right here is death, and it is above rescue. And he has his raiment. Protection looks like a sword. I think this is protection, and it even has the commandment over here coming from his mouth. His words. Open-hearted is over here. I put in some other terms. Let me see. But the terms here are almighty, wise, holy, Elijah, precious. Ignore that. That's me. Noah, Moses, prophet, priest, the fire, angelic, God, Jehovah, holy language, priest, language is where he talks, priest, prophet, prophetess, prophetic, ram, beauty, cultivator, death, cleansing, radiance is both down here. Oh, stumbling block. Oh, I really like stumbling block, which is right around here. And the protection about the commandments. I put in some more words. I forgot to put in paternal commandment. I didn't put in director. Some more wises, open heart, to try to fill out the picture just a little bit, but I didn't put commandment in. I think I put paternal is over here. Director I didn't put in. So anyway, I didn't do justice to this code. You can see the sword of his tongue gives commandment. The code isn't what's so great, but it's Jehovah's reaffirmation in this code about who he is and what he's doing. The code shows a little facet, I think, about how awesome Jehovah is, because it talks about basically how great he is and how he's going to overcome death and rescue us from death. I mean, it is a real neat, cool code.
Very small skip
I
too.
had-
Only 11. That's really small. Where is that, by the way? What can you tell
It's
us?
in
Second
Second Kings,
Kings. Okay. Wow, and
chapter 10.
it's only just a couple of verses.
It's in one chapter
Yeah.
in Kings, Second Kings. And of course, a reminder, anybody could have found this. Anybody. He lets me know that I'm kind of like a donkey or a mule. And here it is right in here. Anyone could have done this code, but he chose me to do this code. And as because he'll use who he will use. So I have.
That's kind of a cool feeling, isn't it, sister? Sometimes I have to sit and just kind of meditate on that fact that I may be looking at something that no other person's ever seen before, and
I
that's a kind of a heavy thought.
no, I think more along the lines of um anybody can open a book and put stuff in Google Translate, but I know it can have used anybody, but sometimes it's really hard putting yourself out there
Yeah,
and even presenting this stuff.
I know.
It
I
it
understand.
takes a lot more bravery
Yeah.
than I have,
Well,
but
you know
for
what?
some
I'm very
reason,
proud of you, Margie and Leanna, and a couple of others that are not here. You guys do very well, and so I'm proud of you guys for getting over that. You're right. That is a difficult thing, even though you're presenting to a smaller crowd here. It's still kind of a big, hurdle to get over. To do that. Moses was the same way. He said he didn't want to speak because he didn't speak plainly, right? He had a stutter
Mhm.
and y'all still used him anyway.
And this is the beginning of a code I'm doing, because instead of finishing my old codes, I got all distracted and it did some others. Um, this is the I will provide code in Genesis, and this is something can you see it?
Did you
Can you see?
switch? Did you switch to it? Because we're
Yes.
still seeing a
Oh,
holy
wow.
is Jehovah. You might need to stop share and share again. Yeah, we're still seeing
Okay, let me see if
the
I
real
can
little one.
stop share. I don't know if I can stop share. Let's see. Let's go
That's the
up
one
here.
thing I don't like about Zoom is it doesn't let you transition or just flip through
Okay.
your presentation. You got to stop share and then share again.
Oh, that's okay.
There you go.
Immediately
Now we
in
can see it.
this,
Now we can see it.
I will provide. I saw this with just a few terms. Basically, it's um, Jehovah, I think Yeshua, um, and this is what I immediately found. And I noticed, boy, this is a chair. Turns out it's a mercy seat. This is an altar over here. And some other things I haven't figured out there. But what I saw in this one, do you see 323, which is the back of the chair? I started looking at that column, right? No, 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 no. Let me see. Is this the back of the chair? No, it's before the chair. It's right here, 313. It's a part of the chair, like it going through the chair. But let me see. I was surprised that in this, it says loved one within it. Love is a gift. The love is accepted and evil is evil. I will accept and accept evil. And I need to reevaluate it. I saw it and I was surprised. So I started to look at other things in here just to get a feel for I did until letter K and just get a feel of the different words that were here, what's where, are there different layers to the code that I haven't seen? But you see, this is some of our sins are on the mercy seat. So and then things like doctrine and demons and other things put on the altar of God to try to get rid of, I guess. I don't know. I think it's an altar because it says altar right here, I think. Anyway, what I saw in this code was first altar, angelic, beloved, blameless, angel, we will be saved, beating, cleansing, circumcised, commandment, complainer, conqueror, correct, cowardly, crucified, crying, cumulus, deaf, debtor, defiant. What I was seeing is a list of sins and ways that we aren't supposed to be, but then his mercy. And about, they have acceleration of angels here. And I found out from this code, it's interesting. Here I am, I'm finding out what we should do sometimes from the codes. I'm finding out that daily we are supposed to pray for mercy from these things. And daily we are supposed to place certain things before the altar and say, just ask for mercy and say, hey, anyway, I found that in the code. It was just amazing of what I found out so far. It wants you to do, God wants you to do it daily. So that's what I found out. I thought it was interesting. So I'm not done with that, obviously, but it was so interesting that, oh, where is the Zoom? Okay, let me look. Zoom. This isn't it. How do I stop share? I'm sorry. I can't figure out how to stop share.
You want me to do it for you?
Okay. Yes,
Awesome.
please.
All right.
I'm sorry.
There you go. No worries.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely. That was great. So you see pictographs in your codes, huh? Is that something that
The second one, I don't know. I see the mercy seat. I haven't been able to figure out exactly what the other things are, but I'm I am routinely finding pictures in my codes. Not all of them,
Yeah.
but yes, I see pictures in codes.
Okay, so what I mean is, so like when do you look for them or do you just see them? You just happen to see that, oh, that makes a picture.
When I do the code, a picture appears.
Okay, yeah,
I think it has been really shown to me that anybody can do this.
yeah.
For some reason, God has chosen to use me.
Amen.
And I was like, why me? Because just because you have a picture, I mean, if you don't have a picture, most of the most important and magnificent codes don't have pictures. Sometimes they only have 3 terms.
Yeah.
And it's something I don't understand. So you're asking me, and I I don't understand.
Well, I was just curious because
It's,
I have known another code searcher. This is years ago too, and this person had a gift for seeing pictographs in the codes that he would find, and so a lot of his presentation was um, on that thing, um, with really incredible,
I
you know,
don't,
detail in the context.
I normally don't see it. I mean, I saw something in one of yours and
Yeah.
I said it wasn't complete. And you said, oh, I don't understand. And I could see something inside your code, one of the codes you did, and you just kind of ignored me. And I'm
I
like,
probably
oh,
couldn't
okay.
didn't realize what you were talking about. I was probably because I don't see it. I don't have that gift. Other people do, and that's why I was asking you if it's something that you're automatically looking for, or is it just something that jumps out to you and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a picture there. Because that's kind of what
No,
this guy was
I
doing.
normally,
Yeah, he was seeing them all the time, and once he mentioned it
I,
and pointed it out, I could see it. Yeah,
no, I, I just, I, I don't know why Jehovah is giving me codes, so many codes with pictures when um I I think, you know, I think that there's something, it is not because it says that in another code it really lets me know that I was a trained analyst and that um and that many of us were anointed before time to do this, which is just blows my mind. But there you go. Um, but I don't because I'm not better. And in fact, almost everyone's better than me in the group. And I don't say it to be um super humble. I'm just trying to be super factual, you know? And yet this is what's happening. Anyway, I look forward to
mhm.
seeing your code, Leanna. Bye.
Yeah. You should be able to share, Leanna. Thank you, Margie, for that.
Okay, let's see. I want to see if you guys can read this. It might be too small. Can you see that?
It's still rendering. Hold on here.
Okay.
A little bit slow.
All right. If that one is too small, I can try to share something else.
It hasn't even rendered yet. Nothing's come up.
Let's see. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and try again.
There you go. All right.
Can you see anything yet?
Yeah, now we can see your page.
Okay, this is just from Leviticus 23. You know what you've been talking about
Right?
Shavuot. And I just read it again because I read it 5 or 6 or 7 times for a long time now, about 4 years, trying to figure it out. But on the verse where it says, even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, shall ye number 50 days, and you
Right?
shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. The verse right before that, it says, ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheep of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. And then it says, even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, ye number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord.
Mhm.
And that's all I wanted to share about that, because that's what my code was inspired, was the morrow after. So I'm going
Okay.
to stop sharing that. And this is the report. Make it a little bit bigger. The morrow after, this is Lemechret, Oz, maybe is high, or Mose. This is the morrow, and these 3 letters are after. I'm in there, you're in there, Jonathan. I was wondering if it's okay to do this. I couldn't find 50 written as a word,
Right.
so I did 50. Is that permissible?
Yeah, you can, because letters are numbers as well. So you can use letters, and there's a different combinations for some numbers that you can do,
Yeah, I've seen other
but say the
codes.
same thing.
Yeah, it says the same thing. So, and days, there's a longer version than this, but this was in this code. And I wanted to reiterate after. So I did the adjective of after also. 7 Sabbaths complete. And there's a verse that I highlighted in the code, that when Yeshua was talking to the scribes and Pharisees, and they were asking him why his disciples wouldn't wash their hands. And he was talking about how you follow the traditions of men and not of the Father, you
Exactly.
know. And so I highlighted that verse in my code, because it's run right through it. There's more in Mark there about the same subject and what Yeshua said. This is a just continuation of that verse. And then I added count and add to the code also. So now I'll share.
By the way, you guys, on the surface, especially with Christians, it appears that Yeshua is coming against the law. He's coming against the Torah, right? But there's nowhere in the Torah that tells you to do this. It's very much like what I've been trying to tell you with some of these traditions with rabbinic. It's nowhere in the Torah. Counting the Omer, you're not commanded to do that. It's a rabbinic tradition. Tisha B'Av, it's a rabbinic tradition. Yeshua was pointing out to these rabbis, because remember, they were in Babylon before, Yeshua got on the scene, and they have something called the Babylonian Talmud. They had already started following after the traditions of the rabbis, right? Well, now we can see your table here.
Okay.
This is in the New Testament.
Yes, it is. This is the
Very
book
cool.
of Mark 7, chapter 7 to Luke chapter 1 is And it was only in there one time with this title. And here is, I'm just calling it the morrow after. Here it is right here. Lamed Mem Het Resh Tav. And then this is after Mem Aleph Zion. And what I did was I just kind of quoted in my mind Leviticus. So what I did is count 7, which starts down here and goes across. 7 Sabbaths after. I'm just reiterating after on the morrow after, count 7 Sabbaths, and then 7 Sabbaths complete is in here. And then add, which is right through here, which would be the same as number or count again. And here's my 50 right here, going up into the line where that verse is. Days. All the
Wow.
way across the code. And see, it just, to me, it just tells you the whole verse in Leviticus, the whole couple of verses.
Yeah.
And this is in the book of Mark. And you're right here, Jonathan.
Hey, that's pretty interesting that you got 50 connected to the very verse talking about man-made traditions.
Right, exactly. And to me, it was very important because our brothers and sisters who are Jewish who do not have Yeshua, they are missing such a blessing because
Amen. Yeah.
now they should be celebrating. They should celebrate the harvest and all of the. And I'm hoping that we can spur them on to loving their festivals
Amen.
because it's just as important. You know, we think it's important. Many of us do, and it would just be a beautiful thing if they could have the joy of the harvest. And I'm finished, and thank you very much for letting me share.
Very good.
Oh, and Jonathan, I will be sharing Shavuot codes. I found 30 in the
Okay.
book of Acts, and I don't know if you're like me, if anybody's like me, but when I have that many choices to make between that many things, I can't not decide. Because
Yeah.
they were all good, but I'll share that on another day.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
And on that note, talking about, that's kind of why we have this mess now with this particular feast, Shavuot, is mourning, and it's supposed to be a joyous time, right? So they found themselves in a bit of a pickle. And by the way, they didn't listen. The destruction of the temple happened in 70 AD. They didn't institute the counting of the Omer and doing the Tisha B'Av thing till several hundred years later. Okay, but what they were doing was Jews were still coming back to Jerusalem for the feast time because that's part of it, right? Even though they knew there wasn't a temple there, and every time they would get there, for a long time, for a very long time, Yah had turned all of their feast into mourning, literally. So they get their Passover. There's supposed to be a temple, no temple. We're crying. Have to come back later for Shavuot, no temple, we're crying. Come back at Sukkot time, no temple, we're crying, right? Every single one of them, eternity. That's in Amos 8, you guys. Amos 8 is the secret to why all this happened in the first place. And and from what I can gather, Christianity just adopted some things, even though with Constantine, they did their best to try to Judaize a lot of things, and that may be a big reason why we have something called Pentecost and it's not called Feast of Weeks. In specific in the edict, I do believe that he specifies no more Feast of Weeks, right? And so what, well, you know, what are the early Christians doing? Well, they're counting 52. That, you know, only 50. It has nothing to do with grain to them, right? And they're definitely not doing what it says in Leviticus about this particular day, waving the bread. To them, it's something that happened in the upper room, and it happened at 50 days. Even though it doesn't say that in Acts 2, you guys, it does not say 10 days later. Why you say 10 days later? Because Yeshua it was 40 days before he ascended, and then supposedly 10 days later, when Pentecost was fully come, and that's what it says, when it was fully come, that could be 10 days, 3 days, a year, you know, doesn't specify, right? So for the believers, this is an amazing day, right? Because after they witness Yeshua going to heaven, and then they are waiting in the upper room at Shavuot time. And by the way, this had to be in the summer because, first of all, it's a wheat festival. There has to be wheat that's golden to make flour to weigh bread. And there has to be new wine because the disciples were accused of being drunk on new wine. And so I don't think that was just a little detail that was added into the text by accident. I think Yah wanted us to see a window in time, because that new wine alone narrows the window when this could be. Does everybody follow? So there can't be any other time. It has to be in this narrow window. When is that? From 5 to 21 days is a window where there's new wine. There's still sugar content after that. After that, all the sugars is now converting, and now it's aging, right? So the gases are no longer expanding. The sugar content is not as high as it is with an aged wine. When it's new wine, it's very sweet, sort of like a sangria or a table wine like the Jews have. Very sweet wine. So it can't be what they say. And so I went down this road, and it ended up here. This is where the Holy Spirit led me. And what he said to Amos: "Thus hath Yah Elohim showed unto me, behold, a basket of summer fruit." That's important. Summer fruit. And he said, because it's time specific, right? And he said, "Amos, what seest thou?" And I said, "A basket of summer fruit." Then said Yah unto me, "The end is coming upon my people of Israel, and I will not again pass by them any more. And the songs of the temple shall be howlings in that day, saith Yah Elohim. There shall be many dead bodies in every place, and they shall cast them forth with silence." So the first century Jews, and by the way, Amos lived in a time of Jeroboam. So this particular thing that happened with the temple being destroyed was many hundred years later. But they recall this, okay? Specifically, you know, the things that happened, the death and destruction that took place in the holy places. And it wasn't just the Romans that was doing this either. Before the Romans got there were two Jewish factions that were fighting each other. One had control of the Temple Mount, the other had the control of the city. They were murdering one another inside the temple, right? Yeah. And it was bloody. It was like the Bloods and the Crips. If you want to talk about gangs, gang fighting, that's basically what it was. Bloods and Crips against each other in the temple compound. And then the Romans get there at Passover time. The Bloods and the Crips decide we're going to fight together against the Romans. That's what they did. They didn't particularly like each other, but they had no choice, right? The Romans trap them in the city for a total of 8 months, from Passover all the way to Sukkot time. There's killing going on. But this particular time that we're talking about here, and where it eventually ended up, I think stems from Amos 8 and what Yah told him here. "Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even make the poor of the land to fail, saying, when the new moon will be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances of deceit. that we may buy the poor of silver for silver and the needy for a pair of shoes, yea, and to sell the refuse of wheat. Yet, and I have sworn by the excellency of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their works. Shall not the land tremble for this, and every one mourn that dwelleth therein? And it shall rise up wholly as a flood, and it shall be cast out and drowned as by the flood of Egypt. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith Elohim, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and will darken the earth in clear day. I think this is a mention of what happened at the cross, because again, at feast time, Yeshua has given up his life, right? This is a lot of bloodshed, even his time, 30 years, 40 years prior to what Titus did in the destruction of the temple. I will turn your feast into mourning and all your songs into lamentation. And I will bring up sackcloth upon all loins and baldness upon every head. And I will make it as the mourning of an only son. And the end, therefore, is a bitter day. Right? So it's like the mourning of you just lost your only son. Behold, the days come, saith Yah, that I will send famine in the land, and not a famine of bread, nor of thirst of water, but of hearing the words of Yah. Where did they hear the words of Yah? Right? When they come for the feast time, they would come to the temple. What? To hear the words of Yah. Now there's no temple. So now we got a famine for the words of Yah. Then, and they shall wander from sea to sea and from north even to the east, and they shall run to and fro and seek the word of Yah, and they shall not find it. And by the way, this is the diaspora when they were cast out of the land. It was never the same anymore when Yah destroyed the temple. And I think he was making a statement that it was done. By the way, Josephus records that a loud voice, it sounded like more than one voice, that cried out and said, "We are no longer here." Who's the we? I think that would be the Father and the Son, right? We are no longer here. 40 years later, the temple is destroyed after Yeshua. It was prophesied. So so like I said, 71 AD, they weren't practicing Tisha B'Av and counting Omers. Like I said, this came much later. It came after, the Romans forced them to fix their days so that their Sabbaths would never fall on the holy day of sun worship on Sunday, right? And I showed you guys before, last week, how that a solar lunar count jumps all over a Roman calendar. And there are times where it will fall on Sunday. The Romans forbid this, right? So they fixed the calendar. They also come up with something other than going to Jerusalem at Shavuot time. And by the way, even after the destruction of the temple, almost yearly, when that time of year comes around, and even to this day, you guys, even to this day, there are some Jews that will not travel in that 3 to 4 week period because of bad luck, that something always bad. Plane crash, they won't get on a plane or drive in a car or walk across the street because it's bad luck. Okay, where's this come from? I think it comes from the curse that when Yeshua gave his life and Pilate washes his hands, the rabbi standing there say to him, "Let his blood be upon us and upon our children's children," right? So a curse came on the people. And I think when the destruction of the temple happened, it was a statement from Yah. I think when he ripped the veil from top to bottom was a heck of a statement, but they sent it out to be repaired and just kept on going, by the way. So Yah had to literally take his hand and push it off the mountain and destroy it completely. How's that? Yah is so upset that he destroys his own house twice on the same day, in the same season, which is the beginning of the summer harvest, you guys. It's the beginning of the summer harvest. So Shavuot is supposed to be a joyous time.
Jonathan,
Yes.
isn't Shavuot always on a new moon?
I believe so. Yeah, we're debating on that now. Some are counting it a little different, so it's going to fall at the Sabbath, but I think it is the new moon where it conjuncts. Yeah.
Which verse number 5 in Amos 8. Wow, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's naming the wheat and the new moon.
Yeah. And when will the new moon be over? Right. So we can buy corn and at the time of Shavuot, they're in the city starving. And they're willing to, they're trying to get out and outside of Titus's wall to get to the wheat and harvest it. And they had been cut off. And so they can't get nothing by the time they weren't even able to celebrate one last Shavuot in that season. So it literally became a time of mourning. And if you can imagine, some holiday and your whole family is killed on that holiday, you may not want to celebrate that holiday year to year, right? So you might avoid that, right? It might be a bad time for you. That's what happened to all of the Jewish people. It became very painful for them. And so I think from the best I can gather, and I have to run these rabbit trails down to see exactly which rabbi did it and who and when and what time, right? Most Jews today just know what it is. They just don't know how it happened. They don't know the backstory of it anymore, okay? So when you start talking about wheat and Shavuot, no, that's way over a lot of them's heads when you're talking about that. They just know it has a lot to do with the destruction of the temple, and that it's the only one that's going to be reversed when the Messiah gets here, which I find really interesting. I've never seen that before in the Torah, that there's suddenly we've got something that's only been kept since the destruction of the temple, and it's not permanent. It's something that's going to be reversed when the Messiah gets here. I got a video of a rabbi saying just that he can't wait because he doesn't like this. He doesn't even know what to do at this time of year. It's so awkward, right? Anyway, Tisha B'Av hasn't always been around. It is definitely a rabbinic tradition because they are commanded, or we are commanded in keeping Yah's feast. We're supposed to have a joyous heart. How can you do that if you have a joyous festival? So this is a 21-day thing, and Shavuot falls directly in the middle of that. So you would be mourning for several days and then have a 1 day where you're joyful and then another 10 days where you're not, right? And so the Jews are not doing that. And so they made conscious decision, and that's what I'm saying. I think it's Akiva that did this way back. And this is in like the 900s going into the 1100s, something like that. I may be wrong about the dates on it. But that's when they started doing this because, they can't go to Jerusalem they weren't going to Jerusalem to do any of the feasts. They were doing what they could where they were. All right. So the first and the second temple are destroyed at the same week. The Jews, so it says the first temple was destroyed either the 10th of Av, and that's Jeremiah 52:12, or the 7th, 2 Kings 25:8. The second temple, according to Josephus, was destroyed on the 10th. How did rabbinic Jews come to commemorate both the destruction of the temple on the 9th of Av? So he's going into, which also, it's not even the day that it was destroyed. And the best I can gather from rabbis is, well, we didn't want to commemorate the day that it was destroyed. So what we've done is we commemorate the last day that it existed. Okay, that's the logic here. So the 9th of Av was the last day that it existed. The 10th day it was gone. And so that's why they do the 9th of Av, even though the 10th is when it was destroyed. See all these little details that just kind of get lost in the chaos. But the fascinating thing about this particular time is just about every year, you guys, just about every year since the destruction of the temple, something bad happens to the Jews as a whole. For instance, the final solution from Hitler, and when it was decided that they were going to kill all the Jews and start sending them to death camps, it was the 9th of Av, right? Every time that they were expelled from somewhere, somehow happens on the 9th of Av. In every case. So this is consistent all the way down history. So they're very paranoid about this day or this time, this 3-week period of time. They got something they pulled from Zechariah talking about the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the 7th month, and the 10th month. So I think they have 6 times a year where they do a serious fast. And it just so happens that the 9th of Av is one of those. Very interesting. This is from, I think it's a Sephardic source here. I want to take you over to what this rabbi here says right off the bat. Just want to see if you're going to pick up and notice what he says here. Now, this is a Hasidic Ashkenazi Jew, which they do the Tisha B'Av a little bit different than the Sephardic Jews. But listen to what he says here.
Normally, you get up to the podium and say, "It's nice to be here." It's not. I don't know if you say that in Tisha B'Av. It's nice to be. I don't know. I'll just honestly, I'll tell you, Tisha B'Av is a difficult day. I'm not even really sure what to do with it. I mean, there's the halacha. You can follow what it says in Shulchan Aruch.
All right. So what he means here is there. He's like, it's a day I don't even know what to do with. There's the halakha, the way, which is the tradition, right? But you don't know what to do with this day.
But I'm saying how to feel about it. I'm not comfortable with the day. I'm kind of hoping that we get rid of it as soon as possible.
Okay, so how do you get rid of a day? You tell me, you guys. How do you get rid of a day if it doesn't belong there in the first place? That's how you get rid of it. Okay, so he is waiting for a moment where we can get rid of this time. He's not just talking about this day, Tisha B'Av, but the whole 3-week period. Okay.
Even Mashiach could come today, and we don't even have to finish Tisha B'Av. Or actually,
So the Messiah could come today, and we don't even have to finish Tisha B'Av, right? Why is that? Well, because it was enacted, like I said, somewhere around the 900s, I think it was. And it's a Band-Aid. It's a temporary solution to a permanent problem is what it is, you guys. Because they don't have a temple and they don't know what to do. And they don't have Yeshua. So they have, oh my gosh, we got a problem. What can we do? Right? There's no high priest to follow. Everybody's following after their own version of a high priest and the rabbis, right? So that's why they have so many different sects of Judaism. But this is pretty universal to them and what they do in here, Tisha B'Av, but they all agree that it's a temporary thing, that once the Mashiach gets here, and by the way, they believe that he's going to come back around this time. And he even says here that their rabbi, which was Schneerson, was born at this time. So that was like, well, a good sign. That was, even though he was born in a time of mourning, it's not considered a bad omen. It's actually a good. It's crazy, you guys, the way they think here with this stuff.
we could really have the real Tisha B'Av. As we know, Tisha B'Av is called the Moyed. It's called the Yom Tov. The Rambam says at the end of Hilchos.
It's called the Yom Tov. What's Yom Tov mean? That means the good day. It means it's a Shabbat. Okay. And that is what we're talking about when we're talking about Shavuot. It's a Yom Tov. It's a good day. It's not supposed to be a time of mourning, but that's what it became. So how can we keep Shavuot and how can we mourn at the same time? What do we do? What's the solution? Anybody know what's the solution? We separate that day. We take Shavuot from its correct place in the middle of a time of mourning and we move it to a new place. You know where that new place is? 50 days. 50 days. Because the text clearly says what it says. 7 Sabbaths complete and then you number 50 days. And by the way, this is the law first. I don't care what it says in Deuteronomy. If you go to Deuteronomy and it's reiterating this, it's not going into the details. It just says count 50 days. But law first, this is where we see it first in Leviticus. 7 Sabbaths complete and then number 50 days, which puts us into the wheat harvest, which is spot on the money when we're talking about waving loaves of bread. What do the Jews do? Well, because we've moved Pentecost, Shavuot to 50 days. Now we are baking bread out of the only grain that's available. And oh, by the way, it was the only grain that was available in the last time we did this in the temple. You see what I'm saying? It was the last grain available to them. And they could only bake barley. they could not wave wheat, you guys. And so to this day, even the counting of the Omer, that Omer is representative as they're every day they were going out of the city to collect some barley to survive. After 50 days and after the wall comes up with Titus, they can no longer go out anymore and get any more grain. Okay. So the wheat was completely cut off. And now it's become, because we messed up at the mountain with the calf. We lost the first temple in the same time. We've now lost the second temple in the same time. Okay. And then the Romans kept the brutality up all the way up until the time of Hillel II in the 300s, when the calendar was changed, you guys. It was a brutal history for the Jews under the Romans. So they're doing this thing, but it's a temporary fix to a permanent problem.
Kindness, when Mashiach comes, the fast days are not only going to be no longer sad, they're going to become Yom Tovim, they're going to become happy days. So we'll have the real.
All those fast days that I just showed you on that article over there, all of those, the 6 fast days of the year, the time of mourning, the Mashiach is going to reverse that, and it's going to be happy times again. Okay, but the Mashiach has to come first. This is their tradition, you guys. And by the way, I'm not teaching you this because this is what we're going to do. Okay, I'm trying to explain to you how we got into this mess of counting 50, and then the Christians come away with something called Pentecost. And by the way, that's not even a Hebrew word. We're talking Greek now, which is really confusing, right? Why not keep it the name it's called? Feast of Weeks, Shavuot. Give it the real name, right? It's confusing. The devil's in the details in doing that. It's a hidden day. It's a special day in the sense that this is when Yah poured out his spirit. But now it's known, according to the Jews, as a time of mourning. See how the devil's in the details with this? We should not be first of all, following after traditions of men. If you haven't noticed, I don't particularly like that kind of stuff. So that's why I don't keep Christmas and Easter and all those kinds of things. Traditions of men. I don't see any point. I don't wear a yarmulke. That's a tradition of men. I do wear a tzitzit. That's in the Bible. That's not a tradition of man. It's in the Bible. An egg, having an egg at your Passover Seder is not in the Torah. That's a tradition of the rabbis, right? So there's all these traditions that have come in, and Christian believers have somehow got a hold of it. The last presentation I did, I talked about the Eucharist. Very good example. Yeshua was not establishing the Eucharist in the Last Supper, you guys. He was keeping a Passover Seder, even though it wasn't on the day of the Passover. He couldn't because he'd be on the cross. He was teaching them what it meant, right? So he was keeping a Passover. He was not creating something new. That's going to get me in trouble with some people, I know, saying that. But he wasn't creating a new tradition, you guys. And by the way, he did not come to start a new religion either. Okay, we were not called Christians originally. This came after Constantine, when Constantine got a hold of the way. Okay, so the Jews even had readily admit that it's a time of destruction, it's a time of mourning, and we're not celebrating at this time until the Mashiach comes and he's going to fix it. Okay, that's their attitude. So last thing I want to show you is this is really interesting. This road that leads up from the Pool of Shalom in Jerusalem and goes up to the temple. So this would be where they would have washed themselves down at the bottom, and they would have walked up this road going up to the temple. At the destruction of the temple, what was taking place under the road in the sewers was there was about 2,000 Jews that were hiding in this, and when they excavated, they found some of the things that were down there, which were one interesting thing is coins that they were minting during the destruction, which is kind of crazy. Why would they do that? They were commemorating some things. So fighting to the end, and even some dying in, there's a parallel to the Holocaust too in this horrific thing that was going on to them. So I wouldn't have been surprised if many of them just walked away from Judaism or maybe went and joined the Muslims or something after this. I mean, really, they must have felt like their creator had abandoned them and walked away from them. Imagine, right? So this is the last thing I want to show you. Just kind of shows the desperation, but also it's also about Tisha B'Av.
And joining Zav Orenstein, the Director of International Affairs here at the City of David. So thanks for joining us on Facebook and YouTube. And we are at a special.
This is underground, by the way, you guys. This has all been excavated. This road, it's underground.
Time and also a special place. First of all, explain us what's today and why is this so special to the Jewish people?
So this evening is going to mark the, let's call it not the festival, but the very solemn day known as Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av on the Jewish calendar, which marks the destruction of both the first and second temples. First temple period Jerusalem, second temple period Jerusalem. First temple period Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians 2,500 years ago, 586 BCE. And in the year 70 CE, the Romans destroyed second temple period Jerusalem. And for the last thousands of years, the Jewish people have been marking this day as a day of sadness, of commemoration, of mourning over the destruction of Jerusalem and many other tragedies that have befallen the Jewish people throughout history. One of the reasons is many of your viewers, I'm sure, are noticing that when we film before, I'm usually clean shaven. And the reason why I'm not today is there are many customs that the Jewish people have leading up to Tisha B'Av, which begins this evening. And one of those is we don't shave during the period leading up to Tisha B'Av is a symbol of mourning, among many other
The 3
things.
weeks.
That we'll do on Tisha B'Av. It's a day of fasting. We don't eat, we don't drink. Many other restrictions, all with the intention of putting us in the frame of mind to have serious introspection about why Jerusalem was destroyed all those years ago, what lessons need to be learned from that so that we can transition, as the Bible speaks of, that Tisha B'Av in the future will actually be a day of celebration. But that's only going to come about when we fully internalize the lessons.
So when the Messiah comes, that's when it's going to be turned back to. And by the way, I think what happened in the upper room when the Spirit was poured out is going to happen again on the same day. So maybe that's got, something to do with the Jews too.
Of why Tisha B'Av has been a day of sadness and mourning and destruction for so long. And when we learn those proper lessons and when we're able to apply them to our lives individually, collectively, societally, when we can do that, then Tisha B'Av will really become a day of celebration for us and hopefully for the whole world.
Yeah. And also a number of historical things. I mean, they talk about maybe the Inquisition happened around this day. And just to give us a sort of context, we were with you just a few days ago down at the Pool of Siloam. We are in, I think, probably one of the most important places in the world. This is the original City of David.
That's right.
And right now, describe where we are right now.
So the City of David is, very quickly, it is the place where Jerusalem began. When people think of the Jerusalem of this book, of the Bible, of King David, of King Solomon, the prophets, where the kings preached, where the prophets prophesied, that was in the City of David, not the old city of Jerusalem, but the City of David is located just outside the old city, the western wall, the Temple Mount, just to the south of the old city of Jerusalem. That's where we're standing now, here in the City of David, only discovered about 150 years ago. We had lost biblical Jerusalem. Now, as we spoke about literally just a couple of days ago when we were in the Pool of Siloam, the Pool of Siloam was discovered because of a busted sewage pipe in 2004. And when the archaeologists end up discovering, by chance, the Pool of Siloam, they said, wait a minute, if now we know where the Pool of Siloam is, the place which was the size of 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools thousands of years ago, which served as a giant mikveh, or a ritual bath. The archaeologists said, well, then if that was where people were purifying before going up to the temple, those 3 times during the year, on Passover, on the Festival of Weeks, on Tabernacles, well, then the question was, how did everyone get from the pool, go up a half mile to the temple on the Temple Mount? And
by the way, you guys, these very steps would have been the same ones that Yeshua went on. This is one of the things I love about this. Yeshua would have walked on these stairs.
Answer is where we are right now. This is the very beginning of the pilgrimage road. This is an active, you can go through no problem, right? So this is, as you can see, a very active excavation site over here, one of the most significant ongoing archaeological excavations anywhere in the world. And we find something very interesting over here. So you can see this is the beginning of the road. You can see these are the actual flagstones.
From 2,000 years
From
ago.
2000.
And we're just around the corner from literally just a few feet away from the pool of Siloam.
That's right. Literally,
Yeah.
this was the very beginning of the pilgrimage journey. You would purify the pool of Siloam at the southern end of the city of David. Then you would begin walking up these stones. Now, the road itself would be about probably 5 or 6 times wider than what you see here, right? But you would begin literally walking up these literal stones. Right over here, my ancestors, Chris, mine, yours, right? This is where they're walking 2,000 years ago. You can see it, you can touch it. It's real, and it's an amazing thing.
It really is.
But when the archaeologists are digging here, they find something that's strange. Now, I grew up in New Jersey, the New York area, lots of potholes, right? And they're
Boston, the
right?
potholes
There
in
you go.
Boston too.
So they come here and they begin digging, and they find, and you can see it very clearly over here. They see the very beginning of the pilgrimage road where we're standing, a giant crack in the pavement. So they say, all right, I guess some things never change, right? There are potholes today, potholes 2,000 years ago, right? So you have this giant crack in the pavement. But then as they keep excavating, they find every few feet, every few meters, additional cracks in the pavement, evenly spaced. And you can see along the road here, you can see the first crack over here, another crack over there, another.
Now he says crack, you guys, but that's not a crack. It's the whole slab has been shattered and gone. That what the Romans did was come through with sledgehammers and bust holes, because this is where the sewage was underneath, right?
Crack further up. And it just seemed too symmetrical.
So they were doing it.
A
They were doing it every so many feet all the way up this walkway.
coincidence. And so the question was, why would someone be deliberately breaking holes in the pilgrimage road? So they turn to the writings of the historian Josephus. And Josephus says in the year 70, the Romans are destroying Jerusalem. The temple atop the Temple Mount is in flames. The last Jews of Jerusalem seek refuge from the Romans. Where? In the drainage channel that's located directly beneath the pilgrimage road. Right over here, you can see there's basically a sewer that is beneath the pilgrimage road. It would have had rainwater and whatever going through it, 2,000.
And you guys see that? So this is the road that he's standing on underneath, and this is where they would have been busting holes all the way up this to get to where the sewer was. So above here. So 2,000 Jews were hiding in the sewer. Now imagine that. This is where all the feces, all the blood from the killing, all the water, all the urination from animals and stuff, this is where it would be.
Years ago.
Okay.
So here's the road up here. This is what we're
Right.
standing on right now.
Uh-huh.
And beneath us is a sewer, right? A drainage channel, which looks just like
So
this.
how high would this be?
Basically, you could probably stand almost fully in it. You'd have to
Mhm.
crouch a little bit,
Right.
but it's very narrow,
Yeah.
right? And Josephus says that 2,000 Jews were hiding there in the year 70. Now, what happens? The Romans, they find out about it. They have good intel. They find out about it, and they come with sledgehammers. And what do? They break open the pilgrimage road. And Josephus says they find 2,000 Jews hiding there. Now, the archaeologists, what do they find? You can see they find whole cooking pots, meaning the Jews were living there for days, weeks, perhaps even for months, until the Romans find them all and kill them all. Now, if you look over here, you can see remnants of whole cooking pots right over here that were found in the drainage channel, right? These were the pots that those 2,000 Jews, this is how they were cooking their food while they were living in the sewers. And this is reminiscent, if you think back not too long ago, to the times of the Holocaust,
Yeah.
of the Shoah, where Jews were hiding from the Nazis, hiding in the sewers and trying to survive. And the fate of the Jews hiding here in Jerusalem was not altogether different from what happened in the Holocaust. And in fact, archaeologists find a Roman sword and scabbard, presumably one that was used to kill the last Jews of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the destruction of Jerusalem. This is Tisha B'Av. This is the end of Jerusalem in the year 70. Now, the Romans, they were so proud of their victory over this country that after all of their victories, they would mint coins to celebrate that victory. But here, when they minted the coin they minted after the victory over this country, it was the most widely minted victory coin that the Romans ever made. So here's the coin over here. And you can see here is the Roman Emperor Vespasian. And on the coin, you have a Roman legionnaire towering above a Jewish woman on her knees crying. On the coin, Chris, could you read that? The I is like a J. Can you read what that is? Right, Judea capta. Judea has been captured or defeated. Now, what's Judea? Judea was the name of the country. The reason why Jews are called Jews, Jews come from Judea. The capital of Judea was Jerusalem, right? The Romans were so proud of their victory over Judea, over Jerusalem, over the Jewish people, that they mint this coin, the most widely minted victory coin that the Romans ever minted. And the Romans had lots of victories, but this was the coin they minted the most to show how proud they were. If you've been to Rome, ever been to Rome, Chris?
Yeah.
So,
Seen that
right?
arch.
Of Titus. Now, who was Titus? Titus will later become emperor of Rome. But before he becomes emperor of Rome, he's the commander of the 10th Roman Legion that destroys Jerusalem. On the arch, you can see the Jews being led captive into Rome, and the temple treasures, like the menorah, being led out of Jerusalem and into Rome. Again, you can see how proud the Romans were over the victory of Judea, of Jerusalem, the coins, the arches, the monuments. They say that the Colosseum in Rome, in fact, was actually built from the spoils from Jerusalem, and that the Jews who were taken captive from Jerusalem were meant to fight as gladiators, for sport in the Colosseum in Rome. Right, so all that's happening. You see how proud the Romans were. Now, what's interesting is that from 66 to 70, there was a period known as the Great Revolt, the Great Jewish Revolt for freedom against the Roman occupation. And each year of that revolt, the Jews were minting small bronze coins. But scholars have long wondered why. Why were they minting these coins? Because at that time, the coins had almost no.
Notice it's in Paleo Hebrew, by the way. Oop. I didn't mean to do that.
They couldn't imagine it would be nearly 2,000 years before the Jewish people would return as sovereign to Jerusalem. But eventually we did return, right? And I want to show you now something amazing. In 1958, Israel mints its first commemorative medallion. But there's something very strange about this medallion, because when you look closely at it, you're going to see that what has Israel minted? What does that look like?
It's the Roman
Right,
coin.
it's the Roman victory coin. Now, why would Israel in 1958, why would they, for their first medallion, mint the Roman victory coin over Judea, over Jerusalem? It doesn't seem to make any sense. That's right. Yeah.
Whoop, sleep.
So it doesn't seem to make any sense until you turn over the coin. And when you do, it no longer says Judea capta. You no longer have the Roman legionnaire towering above the Jewish woman on her knees crying. It now says Israel liberata. Israel's been liberated, right? The woman now is standing tall, proudly holding in her arms a newborn child. Beside her is a man working the land, making the desert.
Interesting. Look what he's doing. You know, he's farming. Right? Joy is back in joy. This is joy has returned.
This was Israel's response to Rome 2,000 years in the making. And today, when you think about it,
but for the religious Jews, and I'm going to end it right here, you guys, you got the link is there if you want to watch the rest of it. I just thought it was really interesting because this is literally the last of the Jews that held out was living in the sewers. Can you imagine? Be it, I mean, cooking and eating and trying to survive with children down in the sewer. And by the way, I don't think that sword was a sword that was used to kill the Jews in the sewer. I think it was probably one of the men had it for defense, because they were picking up, if you saw the animation in the last video, one of the problems that the Jews had was they were picking up weapons from and gear, armor from the dead Romans, and then getting killed later by their own guys because they thought they were Roman, right? So they were using their weapons. And so I think that was probably a weapon that they were defending themselves down there. But needless to say, they were wiped out. And they did a number on Jerusalem. I mean, they plowed it with salt. They made it to where it wouldn't produce any crops anymore for a long, long time. even in the 1800s, when Mark Twain went there, he reported that Jerusalem was a barren wasteland, that nothing would grow, not even grass would grow there, right? So, so now we, here we are. We got this thing called Tisha B'Av that the Jews are doing, and it's really affected the calendar. It's been a cascading effect that's translated all the way over to Christianity, and the Christians started keeping something called Pentecost, right? But Yah preserved the true timing in his, for me at least, for some they just read Leviticus 23 and it didn't make any sense. Well, why were we keeping 50 days? Me, on the other hand, I was looking at it and would see, well, where's the grain? So I had a little bit of a different approach than the others that started talking about this, and it's only a handful of us that I know of that sees this count differently. So I know I'm not crazy. If I was the only one, I'd be a little bit concerned. I probably could just keep it to myself, but it starts to make sense to me now what happened, and I love a good mystery. Sort of like, remember the Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys books? I love a good mystery, right? And so it's kind of fun to go down. I really didn't enjoy all the going through the Talmudic stuff, and there's a lot of rabbinic tradition and things you got to go through, and hours and hours of it just to get to an answer. I don't know if you're familiar what the Zohar is or what the Talmud is, but it's many volumes of books. And so it's a little different than the Bible, where I can go to the Bible and cite anything really quickly, but to find something specific, like when and where and how they did this, that's what I mean about the smoking gun. I believe I got the answer, but I haven't nailed down to the exact rabbi or rabbis that decided to start doing this. The best I can do is I've come to the conclusion it's got to be Akiva, Rabbi Akiva, and he was one of the early ones, many, many hundred years after the destruction of the temple, and after the calendar had been changed as well. That we start seeing this thing called Tisha B'Av and counting the Omer. You guys got any questions? I should have asked that a little earlier. I hope I haven't bored you in this whole thing. The bottom line is,
I have a question, and
yes.
it's not exactly about that.
Uh-huh.
I know that sometimes things repeat themselves.
Right.
And it seems that to me that definitely in Revelation and in some other places it talks about the famine, and I had it on earlier. Do you think that there will be another famine for the word of Jehovah?
Yeah, and
Another one.
that wasn't in Amos. That's not the only place that says that, by the way. I think there's a couple other places where it's essentially saying the same thing, that men will hunger for the word. And I think things happen. There's something called twice speak, which is another kind of code that is in the Bible, where you may see Yah says something twice. How's it go, Christina? Are you there?
Job 23, Job 33:14. Yes, pick once, sometimes, yes, pick once, sometimes twice, and even sometimes thrice. It's
Right.
like prophecy repeats itself in
Oh, yeah.
patterns.
Yeah.
And we can start looking at the pattern.
What day are we on the count right now? I'm not really paying attention to the count because I know where it's going to end up. So I'm not counting Omers or anything like that. Anybody know where we are? I think it's for some it's day 30 something. I know the Jews have already done Lag BaOmer, which is day 33. So it's all over the place. It depends on who you're talking about. Some people are already finished with the count to 50, depending on when they did their their Passover. We still got a little ways to go. We got to get to the end. Where is it, Marty? It's the end of July, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Jonathan. Yes, July 24th.
Yeah. So that's where it's going to be. And if you notice, at that time, there'll be golden wheat. And it's right at the wheat's not the only thing ready. You got pomegranates that are coming in, grapes are coming in hard. And so it's a busy time of the year, but everybody's joyful in that time of year. In ancient times, when all this is going on before the destruction of the temple, it's the most
So-
wonderful time of the year.
Jonathan?
Yeah.
Yeah, Margie was asking about where it says about a famine for the word. And Amos 8, 11, and 12 says, behold, the days are coming, thus says the Lord our God,
Right.
that I will send a famine on the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of Yah.
Let me see if I can find. Why did it do that?
I was wondering if there was any evidence of this famine happening again in our time in the Old Testament.
Right. I don't know. It's a good question. Trying to do a really quick search and see if I could give you other verses.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take you off topic.
No.
You can just forget it and we can touch it another day if you want. I mean, even now you can see persecution against anything the Word of God.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
they're calling it hate speech when, we can see when you read inside the matrices, and it talks about how great Jehovah is, and it talks about Yeshua, and it talks about and it's unfathomable that this book was written so long ago and all these designs and all these messages are in it. And
Right.
yeah,
It could only be a divine hand to do that. And that's one of the things that's created the passion in me, because I knew this book was different than any other. And it doesn't matter what translation it is, by the way. It doesn't matter what Yah had a hand in it, because it was his purpose that we would have access to it in this time. I don't think it's by accident that we have codes and we are able to search. Yah had purpose in that. He wanted people to find the hidden things. Yaakov Ramsel is one of my Bible code heroes, Yaakov Ramsel. Yeshua's my name in Isaiah 53. Had he not found, we probably wouldn't know about that, right? And he didn't even need a computer. He was doing it by hand. Isaac Newton also knew that there were codes and was doing it by hand. We have an incredible gift that we have the opportunity to search his word like this and have, technology, computers, and we don't have to do it by hand. You don't even have to be fluent in Hebrew to search codes, right? So what an amazing gift that he's given us to go deeper and discover. I think that one of the primary reasons for it in there to be there is to validate his word, because the hidden goes along with the surface text. It's the book interprets itself. It doesn't need a theologian to write a thesis on the interpretation of any given chapter. the Bible interprets itself. The answers are there. And so no other book like that in the world. And I take comfort in that. You know, you could be on a lonely island by yourself. If you got a Bible to read, I think you're in good shape, right? And there's a lot of times I've been in situations like that. I had nothing but a Bible. That's all I had to lean on. No friends, nothing. Right? Sometimes that's all you got. So anybody got anything else? Thank you guys for hanging out with me and listening to this presentation. I hope you learned something. I didn't bore you on this. I think we're going to talk more about Shavuot. The real Shavuot is coming up. I'm thinking about doing a special broadcast on that particular night, and maybe doing something like a 24-hour broadcast or something like that. And maybe, you know, though it is a feast and it is a hog, there's something a little different about this one than any others, or a Sabbath. Whereas, well, we'll talk about that later. I want to incorporate that into that night and make it a thing to where we could be one mind and one accord, whether it be online or whatever, in that time. I think it'd just be kind of cool to commemorate that time, being that we're studying it and we're trying to nail that time. I mean, I'm talking about the day they were in the upper room and the Holy Spirit was poured out. That is a specific time. And I believe it is at new moon time, where Marty was just talking about it, at the end of January. That's January. I'm a little bit tired. At the end of July, right? So I'm thinking about putting something together on that. Yeah, I think it would be fun, Leanne, to do like a 24-hour thing, maybe stream, have a Zoom open, maybe share codes and take phone calls. I don't know, just something to get people in one mind, one accord, and thinking about that particular night. Sound like a plan? All right. All right, you guys, let me pray us out. We'll see you next week at the regular time, unless something comes up. And sometimes it does. Sometimes Sundays, for some reason, it gets busy with me, messages or a meeting or something like that, to where I got to put class off to Monday. So thanks for being flexible. I'm just so thankful for each person here, Father, and for their soul, and they're just amazing people. And I thank you for them. I thank you for putting them in my life. Father, I ask that you go with them this week, that you would walk with them still, that you would be mighty in their life, that you would reveal yourself in the word, Father, that you would heal them in their body if they're sick, bring them back at the appointed time. I ask this in Yeshua's name. Amen. Have a good week, you guys. Shalom to you.
Shalom.